Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. What I've got here is a Ford KSG416 engine out of a Bobcat 742. These engines are found in Bobcat 632, 642, 722, 732, and 742 machines. However, they're not found in the B series. This particular engine I got as a parts engine because there is a substantial hole in the block on this side here. It appears the connecting rod for the number 4 cylinder let go and decided it didn't want to stay in the engine any longer. So what we're going to do is we're going to tear this engine down for parts and do a bit of an autopsy on the way there. I've already taken a few of the items off. The carburetor, distributor, the flywheel came with it off already. And we're going to take it apart here and see what went wrong and what we can salvage. Alright, so we got the engine mounted to my welding table here. I made a little contraption to hold the engine on. You might have seen this in my rebuild video of the other KSG416 that I did. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. We just got the rocker cover off and we're just going to see here if we have straight push rods, which they appear to be. That might be a good sign. Hopefully the piston didn't impact the head and destroy it, but only one way to find out. We'll pull it off and we'll go from there. Okay, so we just pulled the oil pump off here, my little buddy and I, and we see that somebody has used silicone gasket maker to seal the oil pump to the engine. Now, these oil passages should be open because these are what supply the oil under pressure to lubricate the engine. I'm starting to suspect that this might have been part of the reason this engine died, because it got starved of oil, but we will see here. All right, got the head off, and what I was hoping for is what actually happened. The piston did not contact the head, so the head appears to be, I mean, we're gonna have to get it magnafluxed and checked, of course, but it appears as though the head is perfectly good and salvageable. It'll need a good cleaning, but so far that looks good. The cylinders themselves, it looks like we have, you can see the crack here where it came up. We have some pistons that are quite dirty, but we're gonna take this thing apart a little bit further and see what we come up with. But so far I'm actually really happy. That head, yeah, like I say, it looks pristine. So hopefully there's some other good parts in here we can use. Okay, so we just got the oil pan off here. Eric's doing a good job cleaning. And it does appear as though either of these guys here backed themselves off. The connecting rod bolts, I don't even know where the other one is, but I found this down in the bottom of the oil sump. And the stuff in here, it's definitely gross. The bearing cap itself looks like it's not in too rough a shape, although I'm not going to reuse this because of what happened to it. I don't know if dimensionally it's okay. Now there's the other bolt here. And yeah, it backed itself off. Here's one of the bearing shells. And it looks like it spun a bearing or a lack of lubrication or something. Let me just clean this off. Get off a little bit here and you can clearly see that this thing suffered from lack of oil flow. I'm pretty sure that this oil pump here, the way this is, the passages are blocked off, she was starved for oil. And eventually she let go. This bearing started spinning, loosened off. This crank, once I get it out, I'm gonna have a look. It might be salvageable. We might be able to get that polished and ground, but I'm gonna have to pull it all apart first and have a look. I'm not gonna hold my breath. You can see here the conrod got jammed in between there. So once we get this apart and have a look at the crank, see, it might still be good. It might be salvageable. I'm not holding my breath. Definitely, if it isn't salvageable, it's not a big deal. I still have one good engine with a good crank in it. And we're just going to take this all apart and report back with what else we can find here. But right now, to me anyway, it appears as though this was caused by a lack of oil. I don't know if they ran it out of oil or if it was definitely this oil pump being plugged up with the passages the way it is. I suspect had a lot to do with it. But anyway, we're going to keep taking this apart and then we'll get back to you. I found the other bearing shell and it has been quite flattened here, and it looks to me like this had a pretty nasty bit of clearance in it before everything even let go. You can see just how spread out it is here. And then over here in the bearing cap, I cleaned it up a little bit. You can actually, I don't know how well you can see it on the phone camera here, but you can see all this blue discoloration here. So this got really hot. So another classic sign of running low on lubricant. So I'm thinking that that's what caused this engine to let go. All right, so I got the bearing caps off of the cylinder rods anyway. And again, I feel like a broken record, but there's definitely lack of lubrication going on there again. The number 2 was actually really bad. I suspect it would have been the next one to go. Number 1 looks good, but number 2 and 3 definitely are showing signs of failure. And then needless to say, number 4 has failed. All right, we'll take the mains off next and see what they look like. Stand by. All right, I got the mains off, and it's not looking too rosy here. Number 5 actually looks the best, all things considered. Well, and number 1 actually looks pretty good too over here. But you can see how, I don't know if you can see it all that well through the camera here, but you can see how there's a nice gap here in the bearing because of the hit this block took. It distorted the whole thing. There's a nice crack right there in the bore for the bolt. And this one actually was the hardest one to get out, probably because of all the misalignment. The bearing shell itself, it's showing some wear. This number 4 one here, I've actually never seen one this bad. I don't know if this is the bearing that's separated or if it's material that came up from the other bearing shell. But this crank is definitely going to need some attention if it even will be usable again. Number 3 bearing is definitely worn. Number 2 worn too, not as bad. And then the number 1 actually looks reasonable. And the journals on the crankshaft, well, again, I'm going to have to check and see if it can even be used. You can definitely see some heat discoloration here. And this one here, number 4, that let go. All right, I'm going to take the crankshaft out and see what the shells on the other half of the bearings look like. Stand by. All right, so to get the crankshaft out, I'm going to have to take the timing chain off. And I forgot to show you guys when I took this apart. This is the the timing chain tensioner, and you can see it's very worn. Don't think I'll be reusing that thing. The one on the other engine didn't look anything like that. So I wonder if, again, that was caused by the lack of oil or what. But either way, I think this chain tensioner is toast. Okay, so I got the crankshaft taken out. And yeah, there's a lot of damage. This crankshaft, I don't know if it'll be salvageable. The oil passage here, as you can see, is quite deformed. It might be savable if they can grind it down enough. This crankshaft has already been ground here once. You can see the mains are ground to 20 thou under, and the rods have been ground to 10 thou under. Now they do make 30 and 40 thou under bearings, so it might be okay. The worst ones are, of course, the connecting rod ones, although this main one here is not in the greatest of shape either. Maybe somebody can polish it out, we'll see. I'll have to take it in to somebody who knows about crankshafts a lot more than I do. More cracking in the block from the cylinder, or from the rod letting go. And yeah, that's the end of this block. The number 4 main bearing came apart, as you see here. When I took it out, it just looks awful. And the number 2 connecting rod bearing here isn't far behind either. Had a lot of smearing going on, so this engine is truly on its way out suffering. So I'm going to take the camshaft out, the pistons, and see what else I can salvage. But this is almost all the way apart, and I'm going to see what's salvageable and take it from there. Okay, I got the pistons out here. Obviously this one here is looking pretty ugly. The number 1 and 2 pistons actually look in reasonable shape. Once they clean up, they might be okay as an emergency spare. The connecting rods should be good too. The number 3 piston has a fair bit of scuffing on the skirt, so I'll keep it, but I don't think I'll ever use it for anything else. Now with this piston out of the way, you can see the full extent of the damage. This block is going to the scrap pile, and of course this rod and piston are going to go with it, unless I keep them and put them somewhere as a... This is what happens when you run out of oil or block your oil passages off. So last thing to come out is the camshaft and a couple of little sensors and whatnot, and that'll be the end of this block. And here's the camshaft. It's actually in really nice shape. It's just a little dirty, but good cleaning, and we'll put that in the shelf and it'll be good to go. No wear on it from what I can tell, maybe just a little tiny bit, but it should be good to go. Next I'll pull out the lifters and see how they look. And there's all the lifters. They're in really nice shape. I'm happy about that. So that completes the disassembly of this engine. The block's off to the scrapyard, and we'll have a look here at what we're all able to salvage in a second. Alright, so I'm done tearing the engine down, and this is what I'm left over with. So we got a whole bunch of miscellaneous bolts and nuts. The crankshaft, not 100% sure if it's reusable yet, but we're going to get that checked out. We got the camshaft, the rockers, all that stuff, the lifters, push rods, intake manifold, valve cover, head, starter alternator, the connecting rods from the 3 other pistons I'm going to try and salvage. They should still be okay. The pistons themselves, I don't know if I'm going to keep. The oil pump here, it'll definitely need some looking at before I go ahead and use it, cleaning up, but I think it should probably be good. Oil pickup tube, covers, timing chain and timing gear, water pump, flywheel, carburetor, and the distributor. They're all in nice shape, so they should be good. Here's my little helper who helped me with all this. And Larry, if you're watching, thank you for the great little parts engine. It was a good buy, I think, and it certainly helps me out with my stock of parts. These parts are getting hard to find. Thank you very much again. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye now.